Welcome back to CityCast. I'm your host, Julia Menezes, a former City Lab student. This week, we're taking a break from CityCast's Resilient City series to focus on the topic of business improvement areas, or BIAs. Our guest is Rachel Braithwaite, outgoing executive director of the Barton Village Business Improvement Area. Extending along Barton Street East from Sherman Avenue to Ferguson Avenue, the Barton Village BIA is one of 13 BIAs across the city of Hamilton. As Rachel will tell us, BIAs in Hamilton work to support local businesses and their communities, in part by participating in an advisory committee to the City of Hamilton. To begin, we'll invite Rachel to introduce herself.
I'm Rachel Braithwaite. I am the Executive Director for the Barton Village Business Improvement Area. So a business improvement area is basically a set geographical area, typically of commercial properties, that basically pool their money together through a levy to work collaboratively together on things like beautification, street infrastructure, events, marketing, that kind of thing.
Could you speak a little bit more about how the BIA is governed?
So typically a BIA is governed by a board of directors who are made up of members of that BIA. So members are property owners, business owners. And so there's usually a set number that sit on that board and govern it. Most BIAs in Hamilton, there are 13 BIAs in Hamilton. Most of the BIAs in Hamilton do have an executive director, varying from part-time to full-time, obviously, and some also have a staff. So we're very lucky here in Barton Village. I am full-time, and I have 2 part-time staff with me too. So we're very lucky. We do most of that through grants because BIAs are typically working on a very fine, tight budget. So you're going to be really creative with your funds.
And when you say creative, what does that look like?
One of our staff is with us through grants right now, so not a permanent position, unfortunately. But our budget is very tight. The main reason we have the ability to have staff is because we do a lot of fundraising, get a lot of sponsorships. So usually 50% of our budget is our levy and the other 50% is sponsorships and fundraising. With COVID, that's obviously a little trickier. So we've had to get creative with funding for next year, more so than this year, because this year was already budgeted. But yeah, so most of the BIAs do have a paid staff. We do have some smaller BIAs in Hamilton that do not have paid staff, just because their budget is typically not at the capacity to have that position. And then we have some that just have part-time staff too. So it really depends on the priority and the work that's involved for the BIA. This BIA in Barton Street, we are a little bit different to other BIAs in that we take on a little bit more of an adversarial role. From this community, we have a few different things that we deal with that other BIAs don't work on. So we have a lot of service providers on our street. We have a very low to mixed income neighborhood that has its struggles, right? I mean, I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. We have sex workers and we have drug issues. So we can't candy coat it and sweep it under the rug and pretend it's not there. It's there. So we as a BIA, it's not our primary focus, but we work at, bringing service providers together to see how can we address these issues, how can we support those community members, because they are community members, right? And just make it a safer environment for everyone, not just shoppers, right? So at the end of the day, the community members are going to be our best shoppers, so we need to support them too.
You mentioned some of the other BIAs across Hamilton, and I'm wondering what your relationship is like with those other BIAs.
Hamilton to me is really unique in that it collaborates really well rather than competes. So we have coffee shops on our street that work together and do promo together, and same with restaurants and, stuff like that, right? So BIAs are very similar. Collaboration is the whole aim. So we kind of have to, reach our mandate, so to speak. So the 13 BIAs do work really closely. We've got a great relationship. We have official monthly meetings. So we are an advisory committee through the City of Hamilton. So we definitely have that piece too. But the other executive directors for the BIA were always a phone call away. We're experiencing an issue. We need a contact. We need hey, have you done this before? What did you do? All of the executive directors are very approachable, and that's how you get ahead, right?
I like what you said about how businesses or BIAs in Hamilton have a tendency to collaborate instead of compete. And I'm just wondering, how are you finding ways to collaborate during this pandemic?
Yeah, good question. So not meeting in person, we use WebEx through the city for the advisory committee meetings. And then we're very informal with our other kind of random, hey, I need a favor. So, text, email, phone call.
You mentioned that you work as part of an advisory committee to the City of Hamilton.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit about your involvement with the city?
Our involvement with the city, I would say, isn't where I want it to be, if I'm completely honest with you. So yes, we have an advisory committee, which is great, but sometimes it feels like it's more of a information gathering. Like, let's say we've told the BIA so we can tick a box for certain staff departments, as opposed to them actually coming to us for our input and ideas. So I think there needs to be a little bit of a shakeup. I also would say that unfortunately, many of our councillors don't know what a BIA is or does, which is a huge gap. So we're going to be pushing to get to present in front of council, at least on a yearly basis. So they're aware of the amazing things that we are doing and the impact we have on the city. Because, it's very hard when we go and ask them for stuff like a road redevelopment on Barton would be amazing. And they basically say, no, I don't see your value. Whereas if we at least present each year and say, hey, we organize a huge street festival, costs the city nothing, and we bring 25,000 people to Barton Street, which in turn brings that money to the city. So can we have some give and take here? So they're not knowing what we're giving, right? So we need to change that.
How's your relationship with your counselor?
I feel for our counselor and all of, the downtown counselors, because I feel like unfortunately, right now, it's not one city. It's very divided. And basically anything positive for downtown is being shot down, which is really infuriating. So for us, it feels like we're in a waiting game till the next election. So it's unfortunate.
Are there any issues that are unique to your BIA?
So yes, there are many issues unique to our BIA. So as mentioned previously, we are in a lower income neighborhood. Barton Street used to be Hamilton's historic shopping district. So we are really unique that we have this beautiful built form of a lot of historic buildings. Unfortunately, some for sure are a little unkempt. They've just had wear and tear over the year. And, we really declined with the steel industry decline, right? So it used to be all these immigrant workers would live around Barton Street and shop on Barton Street, and it was thrive. And times have changed. So it's no longer that way. A lot of people have moved out. We did see a lot more increase in rental units, a lot more abandonment of properties and things like that. Things are changing big time though. So we have seen a huge influx of new property owners, younger families, typically Toronto area, that are moving here and wanting to make a change in their neighborhood. We're also seeing new businesses open. So we're averaging typically one a month, even through COVID, for opening, which is huge. And that's those numbers are unique to our BIA as well, right? Other BIAs and other commercial areas are not seeing businesses open at the rate we are. So that's something we're really lucky to have. And we're also really unique in that we've kept a lot of our cultural businesses. So we still have the amazing gems like Duarte's and Ocantino's and DiMontino's and Frank Cecilia Bakery and Starpolski's. So we've got the Portuguese, the Italian, the Polish, and they all commingle. And it's this beautiful kind of community cultural gathering place, and it's lovely. So I really am happy that we've been able to keep that, because usually they're kind of the first to go, right? So we're hoping that will stay for the long term, because they really make the community, right?
I want to return for a moment to the word community. How do you describe your community?
Again, as said, our community is really changing. So we do have a lot of the long-term residents who are very resilient, very proud, and have been here through the long haul and have experienced the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of thing. And unfortunately, Barton Street has had a bit of a negative perception by a lot of people. You know, whenever people say, oh, I'm moving to Barton Street, you're going, where? And I experienced it too. I mean, we moved here 11 years ago. My parents were up in arms. You're moving to Barton Street, downtown Hamilton. Oh my goodness. So it's hard to break that perception piece, right? But we have a lot of new people coming down to the area that are not from Hamilton, right? Who aren't tainted by those pessimistic perceptions. And are willing to give it a chance and kind of open their eyes and say, oh wow, look at that cool new place that's opened, and really be part of that revitalization piece, which is exciting. So how do we reach them? Social media for sure, but also, I mean, I've been in the neighborhood for 11 years now, and so I know my neighborhood, right? I mean, I helped start a neighborhood association. I'm on the planning team. So you know, this is my neighborhood, and, you know, I'm a big believer in you integrating your neighborhood, because you can't complain if you don't. So, so that's how we kind of outreach to our neighborhood, through collaboration, networking, getting, you know, feet on the pavement.
How has your perception of feet on the pavement changed with the pandemic?
So how has it changed with COVID? I would say that we're definitely a little bit more social media and kind of web focused for sure. Same with newsletters. We're seeing a lot more people sign up for our newsletter. We've always had a pretty strong social media presence, and a fairly interactive one too, which has been great. The challenge I think we have in this neighborhood, though, is we still have a high number of people who do not have access to social media. So we usually put posters up in our windows or at storefronts and stuff as a way to kind of do that outreach. Again, that's been challenging, as many businesses are not as open, or just open for pickup, so don't have access to that notice board as much. So it is a bit of a challenge to definitely communicate. I would say that we're not doing as many events. I mean, we recently did a deep pave of a boulevard, and we worked with Green Venture, and we did an outreach through social media and had amazing people sign up to volunteer and remove asphalt by hand. Like, who would have thought? But, you know, I mean, there was 2 people there that had moved into the neighborhood 2 weeks ago, and they just wanted to come make a difference. So I really missed those things through COVID.
And I'd imagine it's challenging too to know what is safe and what is not safe at this time.
It's funny because we were working with Green Venture, and they, for part of their focus, is people have to pick up the asphalt by hand. Like, that's the whole thing, getting that impact. And so they knew they had to have volunteers, and we were kind of like, oh, we don't really need volunteers. It's not safe. So we didn't push it hugely. Like, we shared posts and stuff, but weren't like actively, hey, volunteers, come on out. So luckily Green Venture, you know, we're still able to get volunteers. And I think that made a huge impact. Like, people are missing that. Where do you go to get connected right now? Like, Zoom doesn't cut it. You know what I mean? So it is really tough, and people are really, yeah, it's a challenge to stay connected.
How do you get the city to support your initiatives, and how long does that process take?
So our deep pave took 2 years to go through the city. So I think you just have to have an understanding that it's not going to be quick, and it's not going to be, oh yeah, we'll do that. You've got to have open communication with the city. You've got to know the right trigger words, so to speak, right? So that you fit their parameters, and I find the less risk, the easier it is for them to say yes, so to speak. And it's about building trust as well a bit, right? Like, so for example, our festival that we do, we close Barton down, which is, you know, amazing that they let us do that. It's a hospital route, it's an industrial truck route, it's an arterial road, it's a fire route, like you name it, it's that. And so typically we're not allowed to do anything on Barton, but our festival has been going for 5 years. So there's that trust element that, you know, I think it's okay. And as a result, we can close the street. So, you know, I get it. The city has to be risk averse just it makes sense, right? So I think as long as you've got understanding and, the ability to come to the table and continue to have an open dialogue as opposed to get offended when they may say no the first time, just keep asking.
I think that's really great advice, and it speaks to the amount of patience it takes to work as a member of a BIA.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could speak a bit more about what the process is like working with the city.
Good question. So, if you're an individual trying to do something with the city, I would say find partners. So you're always stronger together, especially if it's an established and trusted partner. So for example, we sometimes have people come to us and say, hey, we want to do an event at the park. Can we partner with you? And that's a little bit easier to get through the city, right? Because again, we've got that trust piece. As a BIA, if we want to push something through, again, we do outreach to our partners. We do collaboration with, experts in the field, especially if it's not something we're an expert in, and then come together and present it to the cities.
Seems like you're stronger together.
Yeah, I think you're always stronger together.
In more practical terms, how do you approach the city? How do you find a way in?
How do you find a way in? I'm still learning. I think it depends on what you're looking to go for, right? So it could be a case of, if you want to do an event, then your in is kind of through something called the seed application. But I would always recommend that you don't just do the applications online. You find a contact name and you reach out. Because if you can speak with people, it opens doors and it opens avenues and it builds connections. So may not always be the easiest way to find those right people to reach out to. If you don't know who to go to though, then start with the counselor and they can usually direct you to the right department and the right people.
Do you get counselor buy-in before you approach the city?
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. Our counselor is really supportive. I think because we're very community focused as a BIA, and so I think that fits kind of her role too. So we're pretty lucky to have her buy-in for most of the things that we put forward. We don't always go to her first. We typically will start with our contacts, and sometimes if we get brick walls, then we will go to the counselor and say, we need your help with this. And then she'll kind of open some doors for us usually, or just guide us to, see what the reasons are that they're saying no. So how can we help them say yes? So, I mean, I should say a counselor doesn't have a magic wand though, right? Like she can't come in and just, city staff are saying no. She can't come in and say, oh, say yes, and just make it fixed, right? It is a lot of negotiation back and forth just to see what are the reasons they're saying no and how do we need to change our requests so that they can say yes, right? So there is a lot of back and forth.
Have you had things turned down by the city?
Yes, for sure. We have had things turned down by the city. We wanted to close Barton Street this year through COVID, through the outdoor dining district program. And they said no, which we were quite disappointed about just because we had the festival in previous years. So we've got experience closing down the street. So I was not sure why they were not letting us do it this year. So that one we have actually approached the counselor on for support. And we're hoping that if things continue the way they do, that next year we can close Barton Street down to allow our businesses the same experiences of the streets, right? And then also our streetscape, we have pushed for a long time for Barton to be redeveloped. So we would love bike lanes on our street. We would love wider sidewalks and a safer walking environment. But we've always been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So much so that we're just trying to find out if we're on the 10-year master plan and we can't get a straight answer. So things like that are super infuriating. But we just have to keep our head above water and continue pushing, and eventually you get there, right?
What's in store for your BIA moving forward?
Amazing things. Well, next year, everything's so up in the air, right, with COVID. Who knows when it's going to end? Hopefully there's an end. So for next year, we usually do, like I said before, a really big street festival the first Saturday in June. So for next year, we're actually splitting it over 3 Saturdays. So the first Saturday in June, July, and August. And we're just hoping that will really give a little positivity boost back to the neighborhood. It's not been an easy time for anyone. So that's what we're looking forward to. And then we just keep pushing ahead, right? Onward and upward. There's lots of fun little things along the way for sure. Yeah, that's kind of our positive for next year that we're looking towards.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of CityCast and learning more about business improvement areas with Rachel Braithwaite. As always, you can email us at citykast@citylabsir.org or find us on social media at citylabsir. Thanks for listening.